Hey everybody, I'm Mike Kazimer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Norco Range. Now this Enduro race machine has been seen on the internet over the last 6 months or so in the form of spy shots, but now it's actually finally officially released and we can dig into all the details. First, let's start with the basics. We've got a carbon frame, 170 millimeters of travel, front and rear, and 29-inch wheels. There's no mullet option, and there's no aluminum option, and that's on purpose. Norco really wanted this bike to be a dedicated race machine. They've got the smaller wheeled Shore in their lineup for the park rats and people that want 27.5-inch wheels. But this one, designed to go fast on some of the gnarliest tracks in the world. As far as geometry numbers go, the size large behind me, it has a 63.25 degree head angle. That's pretty slack. Pretty steep seat tube angle of 77 degrees, and chainstay length of 442.5 millimeters, and a reach of 480 millimeters. Now, all those numbers change depending on the size. And we've seen companies do that with chainstay length before. Norco is one of the first to do that, so larger sizes get longer chainstays. With the Range, they've actually started changing the head tube angle as well, and the seat tube angle. So larger bikes get a slacker head angle, smaller bikes, steeper head angle. Not by a lot, like 0.25 degrees per size. So the smallest size has a 63.75 degree head angle, and the slackest, the XL, has a 63 degree head angle. What's the reason for that? Basically, they wanted to make sure the bike was manageable for riders of all sizes, and so that the ride experience is the same across the board. Same goes with the chainstays, and the seat angle. Like I said, that changes as well, and the larger sizes have a steeper seat angle than the smaller sizes. They know that larger riders tend to run their seat up higher, and if you've got long legs and a slack seat angle, you can get too far off the back of the bike. So they've addressed that with the different seat angles for different sizes. If you look close, you might notice that this bike has replaceable dropouts, and so you might be thinking, oh, I'm gonna get one and put it in the shortest chainstay setting on the largest size frame and make my own magical bike. Well, you can't really do that. I mean, technically you could, but you'd be missing out on the shock length that changes depending on the size as well. Each size has its own set of dropouts as well as its own shock length, all in order to make sure the bike works exactly as Norco intended. While you're listening to me rattle off numbers, let's talk about some prices. This bike right here, this is the C1 version, that goes for $8,999. Pretty tall price tag, but that does get you DT Swiss carbon wheels, DD carbon bar, got Fox Factory 38 fork up front with 170 millimeters of travel, Fox Factory DHX2 coil shock, you got Maxxis Dissector tire in the rear, Assegai up front, both with double down casing. So out of the box, this bike is pretty much race ready. But it's worth mentioning that even on the less expensive models, there's two more. There's one that goes for $6,999, another that goes for $5,599. Even on those two less expensive models, they still get the good tires, still get those double down casing tires, and they all get the same rear shock, that Fox Factory DHX2 coil shock. Also, all the bikes across the board get 4-piston brakes with metallic pads. The model of brake changes depending on the one you're looking at, but again, nice to see that the really important things Norco took care of. All right, let's go over some of the details of this bike. First, I've got to say, big fan of just the overall look. Low slung shock placement, all black everything. It's hard to go wrong. Looks fast and futuristic at the same time. The most noticeable feature is going to be that idler pulley. Sits right here, and that's designed to deal with the chain growth that comes from the bike's rearward axle path. Pulley helps make sure that you don't feel that in your feet as you're plowing through all the rough stuff. Close to that pulley, you've got generous frame slat protection. So right here, ribbed pattern on the top of the seat stay. You also have protection on the bottom of the chain stay. Looking further down, near this lower link, there's a little plastic skid plate, again, just to help keep the bike safe when you're smashing through rocks. More protection is found near the bottom bracket area, and a little shuttle rub guard towards the top of the down tube. Inside the front triangle, you've got plenty of room for a water bottle. You also have room for long travel dropper post. In this case, it's a 210 millimeter post found in the size large. So nice to be able to get that seat slammed way far out of the way for steep trails. Also comes with some pretty high-rise bars, and you have a generous head tube. Again, this bike's designed for steep terrain, so they know that a little bit taller front end can really help give you confidence when the ground just drops away out from underneath you. I mentioned that this bike has a high virtual pivot suspension design. That's a little different than the high single pivot found on the RM downhill bike. And what's the reason for the change? Well, Norco said they wanted to have a bike with lower anti-rise levels, basically in order to keep the bike nice and active in the rough terrain. The single pivot tends to have higher anti-rise, which can be a good thing. You can really feel what the back end is doing as the suspension stiffens up a little bit under heavy braking. But with this one, they wanted it to keep active, keep the back end moving, stuck to the ground, and that high virtual pivot design allowed them to do that. The general theme here is that Norco thought a lot about this bike. You've been talking with the engineers and the designers. It was kind of impressive just to see how much they've been thinking about every single little detail in order to try to make this bike as fast as they possibly can. Speaking of fast, it's probably time to go into some ride impressions. This bike is really good. I've only had 4 rides on it, so I need to go dig in more, kind of play with some other stuff and do some back-to-back comparisons. Probably going to see this in our upcoming field test because we decided to include it just because of its performance so far. But holy crap, I get to ride a lot of bikes. I'm really spoiled and ride tons of bikes every year. And at the last, really in recent memory, I can't remember a bike that impressed me as much on my very first ride. I took it on some fairly rugged trail that I used for testing this style of bike. Plenty of drops, steeps, just big chunky holes. And the speed that allows you to carry, I mean, mind-blowing. It's some hyperbole, but I was pretty mind-blown. I mean, this thing is impressive. And at those speeds, it feels really calm. You can tell what the wheels are doing, but the actual hits, they're not translated right to your body. So you can kind of predict, go fast. I even smashed through a stump, a good sized stump about this big. I mistimed a step up, and there's a stump in the landing about that big. And I was able to push the bike through it. Something I don't think certain other bikes would have allowed me to get away with. The way that this bike feels is kind of how I wanted the Norco Shore to feel. We had that in a previous field test. And that bike was big, kind of tank-like, and I never quite got along with the suspension, actually the shock tune on that bike. Just felt like maybe a little too much compression for my liking. This bike, it's got that nice, just super supple feel, smooths everything out, and it just wants to go fast all the time. And you can go slow if you want to. You can climb it however you'd like to. I mean, it does weigh 36 pounds, so it's not going to be your sprinter bike. You're not going to set KOMs. We say that a lot with these kind of bikes, and they're the winch and plummet style bikes. But the climbing position is comfortable, steep seat angle, cockpit feels good, nice and upright position, all that's taken care of. But really the focus of this thing is on the descents, and it shines bright. It's a really stiff back end, but because that coil shock is so supple, it just allows the bike to track amazingly. I don't know, I'm kind of running out of words to describe it. And like I said, we're going to be doing more testing coming up, but the takeaway is they've done something really special with this bike. Makes you feel like a hero when you're even on trails that you've ridden all the time. Kind of takes your riding up that little extra notch. And sometimes that's what you're looking for. Actually, all the time, that's what you're looking for in a new bike. After all, if you're going to spend the money on something new, it should be better than what you had before. And there's a really, really good chance that this bike is better than what you're currently riding. So stay tuned for more. You're going to be able to see us compare this to other bikes in this category, see how it stacks up. We'll get the stopwatches out. We'll do some timing, really figure out what's going on with this thing. For now, takeaway is Norco's coming up with something quite special. I'm excited to spend more time on it and really see what this bike can do. There you go. That's the rundown of the new Norco Range. Stay tuned for more in-depth review further on down the road. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe so you don't miss any tech content from Pinkbike in the future.